records obtained by House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer reveal Hunter Biden received over $250,000 in wires from Chinese business partners, and Joe Biden's Delaware address was listed as the beneficiary.
On the wire that Hunter Biden received from the Chinese national, the beneficiary address listed was Joe Biden's home address at a time where I'm pretty certain Hunter Biden was not living in the home of Joe Biden. This Jonathan Lee, who wired the $260,000 from China to Hunter Biden's personal account, he is part of the Chinese Communist Party. And it happened while Joe Biden was a candidate for president.
American Majority founder and CEO Ned Ryan joins us now. Ned, Democrats led by Jamie Raskin, Dan Goldman, continuously say there's no evidence whatsoever tying Joe to Hunter's business dealings. Then how the heck, Ned, do they explain this?
Well, exactly, Todd. I mean, I'm sure they're going to be out there today bleating that there's still no evidence, but a little hard to deny that. And it's also proof, Todd, in my mind, that Joe Biden has been lying the whole time when he said he had no awareness, never had conversations with Hunter about his business dealings. A little hard to deny that when it's your address on the wires. It also tells me, again, Joe is intimately involved, as we know, with these wires, as with the phone calls, all the other pieces of evidence that are building up, that he was intimately involved in the family business of influence peddling. I will say this, Todd, the other thing that really strikes me as interesting about this is that the wires took place a few months after he declared for president, which strikes me as extremely interesting timing to be getting this money.
Yeah.
Guess what day it is?
Why are you gay?
Guess what day it is? Mike. What day is it, Mike? Guess what today is? Woo-hoo!
How happy are you that we're going to jail?
I'd say happier than a camel on Wednesday.
Hump day?
I can't do it anymore. I can't. The memes are too good. The memes are too good. They're too good. Welcome to Hump Day, baby. It's Benny Johnson. This is the Benny Show. It's Wednesday, September 27th, 2023. Hunter Biden listed Dad's home in Delaware as the address where the communist Chinese sent $250,000 the month that Joe Biden announced he's running for president. Oh my God, we got him. Fauci was smuggled into the CIA headquarters to influence COVID-19 origins operation because Dr. Fauci is a CIA agent paid for by the Patriot Act in order to create bioweapons. Trump and the GOP debate face off tonight. We'll give you a big preview with the great Kash Patel, who joins the show. My name is Benny Johnson, and this is The Benny Show. How do we keep up the energy? You know, boy, it's my blackout coffee. We're going to have a news cycle that's going to require you to keep the energy going. Every morning I drink the sweet, delicious black grounds of Blackout coffee straight from my mug. It's rainy and chilly in Tampa this morning, so we got hot coffee this morning. Sometimes it's iced. Blackout coffee, freedom. You can taste the freedom in every single bean. It is brewed right here in Florida, made by people who love this country, and I am very, very proud to support them. Go to blackoutcoffee.com/Benny and use the coupon code Benny for 20% off your first order. Stop giving your money to woke companies, especially pumpkin spice latte companies that don't care about you. Stay true to your values. Blackoutcoffee.com. Taste the freedom in every single sip. Oh, people are drinking some hot, molten lava of truth this morning, as we have discovered that the Chi-Coms, the Communist Chinese Party, who, I want to stop the show by saying, if you accept money from the Communist Chinese, you should be in Guantanamo Bay. You should be in Gitmo. You are a traitor to our nation. We should offshore absolutely everything that is made in China. We should China's a bad joke. It's been a bad experiment. Why did we ever trust a communist? After the Soviet Union collapsed, they were like the sole communist party left standing around the world. We could have killed communism in the cradle, but of course we didn't choose to do that because we don't have any balls. Because we didn't actually decide when we had the upper hand to crush communism forever. Just literally, you could have just crushed the communist regime during Tiananmen Square, and then you could have just blockaded Cuba until there was whatever. You'd send Victoria Nuland down there to go do, stage it, whatever. Make it a suburb of Miami. Ladies and gentlemen, you could have done it, but instead, our ruling class, and I'm going to start the show by saying Mitch McConnell should be the next person investigated. In case you were wondering if this is a two sides thing, it should be Mitch McConnell next. Because Mitch McConnell has made a fortune off the communist Chinese. Why is Mitch McConnell strangely silent about all these revelations about Joe Biden? You ask Mitch McConnell about Joe Biden, and he doesn't have, he goes right back into his tortoise shell. George Costanza, shrinkage. That's Mitch McConnell every time you ask him about Joe Biden's crimes, because Mitch McConnell is guilty as well. This is not about Republican Party versus Democrat. It's not about blue versus red, black versus white, rich versus poor. This is about a group of oligarchs who hate you, and it's a bad joke because they use America as a tax farm in order to get themselves rich and then in order to have adventurism abroad like they're doing in Ukraine. Ladies and gentlemen, this is just one story in an emblematic series of events that prove to you that our ruling class hates you and that America, you're suckers. We're suckers for allowing this to continue. Check this out. How utterly egregious and embarrassing for all of us. Joe Biden's home was the address to which the Chinese sent $250,000 directly to his bank account in 2019. Hunter Biden wasn't living there. You can't use your dumbass cokehead kid as the shield anymore. Hunter Biden was the bag man. He's used as the shield. This was created by design so there was a separation point between Joe and Hunter, and actually probably all the drugs and all the hookers and all the whores. That was probably the feature, not the bug. They wanted Hunter Biden to be a degenerate so that they could just blame the degeneracy when it all came out. How corrupt they were. It was probably designed that Hunter Biden was some type of like major delinquent, so there's some kind of sob story. Oh, wow, he just suffered. You hear that all the time. Oh, Hunter Biden is just suffering. He's just suffering. We're so sad for him. He's an addict. Everyone knows addiction, the pain of addiction. Shut up, you're traitors to this nation. You people are traitorous to our country. Let's read. The disclosure marks the stunning escalation in the impeachment inquiry into the president. Hunter Biden was living at his father's house for 2 years following his divorce from his first wife, and then he started banging his brother's widow. Great family. By the way, just a reminder that Jill and Joe Biden are only together because they were cheating on their spouses together. Jill was the babysitter, and she was married at the time, and Joe was married at the time, and they were cheating on each other together. The address was given for the $250,000 wire from Chinese individuals who Hunter Biden was doing business with in 2019, but Hunter Biden wasn't living at the home at the time. Interesting. Let's scroll down here, Jerry. You can show Hunter Biden here in his father's beloved Corvette. Remember, this is the Corvette that Joe Biden went to Lahaina in Maui and cried about might have been singed by a fire when Joe Biden left the Orville Redenbacher popcorn popping a little too long in the microwave. Despicable. They are despicable people, these Bidens. They accepted money. They accepted a bribe. The month that Joe Biden announced he's running for president, a bribe came roaring in directly from the Communist Chinese Party, and it went to Joe's address, even though Hunter Biden was living in California at the time. Ooh, baby. Everyone's in a bit of a panic over this one because the line has been there's no direct evidence of Joe Biden getting bribed from China. Hot damn. Watch.
Congressman, what does this mean? What can you tell us?
Well, I can tell you that on the wire that Hunter Biden received from the Chinese national, the beneficiary address listed was Joe Biden's home address at a time where I'm pretty certain Hunter Biden was not living in the home of Joe Biden. But if you go back even further than that, this Jonathan Lee, who wired the $260,000 from China to Hunter Biden's personal account, he is part of the Chinese Communist Party. He is a huge business person in China with a Chinese-backed entity. that funds investments in the United States.
What do you mean by investments in the United States? Oh, what we mean by that is they're buying up our farmland around all of our military bases. Check out what Jonathan Lee was up to. Who is this guy? Who is this communist Chinese? Go.
The one issue in Congress that Democrats and Republicans agree on is we don't want China taking over industries important to our national security. We don't want China buying farmland. This is the guy that does that. Jonathan Lee is the person who represents China. And if you research it, Joe Biden met with Jonathan Lee. He wrote a letter of recommendation for his child to get into college in the United States. There's a relationship that was developed between Joe Biden and Jonathan Lee when he was vice president, and now we have evidence that Jonathan Lee, who Joe Biden said his son never took any money from, said his son never took any money from China. Hunter Biden's lawyer said that Hunter never received any money from this guy. We have evidence that he received over $250,000, and the address listed on the wire was Joe Biden's personal residence.
Why would Joe Biden's personal residence be getting a wire directly from the Communist Chinese Party as soon as he announced he was running for president? Because the Chinese have bought and sold Democrats. And they bought and sold Republicans. Again, I think Mitch McConnell should go to jail for the rest of his miserable life. Lock him up in the tortoise enclosure in the local zoo. Anyone who takes money from Communist China, anyone who sold our country out to Communist China for a quick buck, sold our future out, sold our manufacturing out, turned hollowed out middle America into an opium den, effectively. The opium that is provided to us through our southern border from the Chinese. Oh, these people, they're so despicable. Jonathan Lee is quite popular in the Biden family. Check out this New York Post article. Joe Biden wrote college recommendation letters for the son and daughter of Chinese financial executive Jonathan Lee. Oh, would you know? Would you look at that? How did that happen? Emails obtained by Fox News indicate Jonathan Lee, the CEO of an investment fund that's buying up American farmland, always around military bases. I wonder why. His business partners, Devin Archer and Jim Bolger, on January 3rd, 2017, college application for Lee's son, Chris. Gentlemen, please find the resume of my son, Chris Lee. He is applying for the following colleges this year. Jonathan Lee, here's a photo of him in the article. There's your man right there. This is your Communist Party apparatchik who is wiring untold sums of cash to the Bidens. In case you're wondering if there is a major problem with all of this, well, the first reason to impeach a president is treason to your country. And we are going to be at war with the Chinese in 10 to 20 odd years, maybe even sooner. Joe Biden is facilitating that war, weakening the American military, softening up the American borders so that China can more effectively conquer America. This is Joe Biden's lasting legacy. Joe Biden should be impeached for this. Kevin McCarthy having this to say about this new lie from the Bidens, treasonous lie at that.
Another thing with Republicans taking the majority of something we just learned today that we would not know. President Biden had lied to Americans again. What we have just found on a trip in 2013, while he was vice president, taking the vice president plane to China, his son, Hunter Biden, went with him. His son made sure he set up to be able to shake hands quickly with Jonathan Lee, a Chinese individual. We now have found today that when President Biden was running for the presidency, when he told the American people that my family has never received money from China, is wrong. We now found today that there were 2 checks wired from Beijing, from Jonathan Lee, $250,000, to Hunter Biden, and you know the address was Joe Biden's home.
Boy, really starting to look like there is direct evidence of Joe Biden receiving money from China. Now, there is a really comical and hysterical rebuff from the White House of this. We'll get to that in just 1 second. But it's worth rewinding the clock back a little bit. You see, Jonathan Lee was a cutout for the Communist Party, and he was paying Joe Biden because Joe Biden announced he's running for president, and that makes Joe Biden somebody that the Chinese want to buy, want to purchase. As soon as Joe Biden announces he's running for president, well, you just have to tick, 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 tick. Rewind the clock back a little bit to the debates with Trump. And here, ladies and gentlemen, is where it gets beautiful. Here's where it gets absolutely glorious. Remember what Joe Biden said when Donald Trump brought up the fact that his family is bought and sold by Ukraine, China, Russia, Kazakhstan, and every evil country on earth, every totalitarian and authoritarian country on earth, these birds of a feather, they flock together. How did Joe Biden respond? Go.
Not a single thing, number one. Number two, the guy who got in trouble in Ukraine was this guy trying to bribe the Ukrainian government to say something negative about me, which they would not do and did not do because it never, ever, ever happened. My son has not made money in terms of this thing about, what are you talking about, China. I have not had, the only guy made money from China is this guy. He's the only one. Nobody else has made money from China.
President Trump, let me ask my question to you.
But could I just one thing?
Very.
Okay, so this is just. I mean, what's amazing about the moderator there? I don't think that was one of the Chris Wallace debates. The Chris Wallace clips are just absolutely glorious. Alex, can you find me that one of Chris Wallace shutting down the conversation about Hunter Biden's laptop? Because it's actually worth revisiting to see the reason why you should hate the media as much as you do. And of course you already do because you're watching this channel, and we thank you for that. And we deeply appreciate your support. However, it's worth noting that it is the only reason that Joe Biden hasn't been impeached yet, and the only reason that Joe Biden maybe isn't in Guantanamo Bay along with Mitch McConnell, is because the corporate press is there in order to protect this system of selling out America. The communists have infiltrated our media. They have shut down every bit of conversation about this. They refused to cover this. They refused to ask a follow-up question, which is, what do you mean Donald Trump's made money in China? And there are photos of you and your son getting billions of dollars in China. You're right. Everything Donald Trump just said there was right. Joe Biden, can you respond to that? These are really big allegations. That's what any normal journalist would do. But they hold up the side. There are failings. They're a Praetorian guard for Joe Biden as he lies, bold-faced, about Donald Trump. It's an insidious game that they play. And those lies are continuing. This is an amazing tweet. Check this out. This is from the White House right now. The White House has responded. This is how bad things have gotten. The White House has responded. Jerry, can we scroll down just a little bit on this to Ian Sams' original tweet? Ian Sams is the White House testicular response director. So he's a ball sack looking guy who is given the unenviable position of having to do rapid response for the impeachment inquiry into Joe Biden. Okay, so this human testicle tweeted out this morning. Imagine them arguing that if someone stayed at their parents' house during the pandemic, listed their permanent address as work, and got a paycheck, their parents would somehow work for the employer. It's bananas. Yet this is extreme House Republicans have thumb can tell. So this is Ian Sams trying to manufacture an argument for this. Now, this means that they're scared. The fact that they're even responding means that they're terrified of this particular line of inquiry. But let's rip his argument to shreds here, okay? Starting with number one. Are kids getting paychecks from the communist Chinese? Did your parents just announce for president? Are the parents the former vice president of the United States of America, who runs a Chinese-funded grift manufacturing organ of University of Pennsylvania that currently has stashes of classified documents? What kind of parent you got, Ian Sams? Mr. Testicle. What kind of parents you got, buddy? This is like an absurd, reductio absurdum argument here. This is insane, ad hominem, absolutely and it's crafted in order to like appeal to people who lost their jobs during the pandemic. Remember the pandemic? Everyone was scared. Also, what a deadbeat degenerate that Hunter Biden's living with his dad in his like 40s. I think Hunter Biden was in his 40s or 50s when this was happening. What is Hunter Biden's age, Alex? Nonetheless, it's all a lie because Hunter Biden was living there Let's scroll up, Jerry. Here we go to the James Lynch tweet. White House spokesperson and straight up lying. Hunter wasn't staying at his parents' house, living in California with a Chinese business associate, sent their payments to Joe's address, according to Hunter's own plea deal. So here's a copy of Hunter's plea deal. Let's read, shall we? After numerous programs and trips to rehab, Biden got sober in May of 2019. The same month he married his current wife. He has remained sober since. Biden remained in California and spent much of the summer of 2019 painting and developing plans for his memoir. So Hunter Biden was in California, according to his own federal filings. Interesting. So it does seem as though the Chinese were literally directly paying Joe Biden here. And that is what Kevin McCarthy had to say in the follow-up question to this press conference that he was having, where he said, whoa, hold on. Hunter Biden wasn't living at the house at the time. They're paying Joe Biden directly. Hunter was in California. California's a very long way away from Delaware. In fact, on a map, California is about as far away from Delaware as you can get. I have a feeling that the Chinese didn't need a spy balloon hovering over Wilmington, Delaware to figure that out. Watch.
Now, I'm not sure if Hunter was living there at the time, because in his book, he says he was living in California at that time. His attorney said he had never, the Biden's attorney said they had never received money from this individual. That was a lie. We also found out this individual, not only did he become good friends with Hunter Biden, the president said he never talked business and never worked. Devin, Hunter Biden's partner, says no. Joe Biden called in. We've now found that Joe Biden not only became friends with this individual, he wrote letters of recommendations for his children for college. So this idea that when the president told us they never received money from China, that's wrong. Not only did they receive money from China, the money, what was wired, used the address of then Vice President Joe Biden. That Vice President Joe Biden took his son to China, where he met this individual that they were doing business with. He even wrote letters of recommendation, Joe Biden did, for the children.
Benny, you're a right-winger. Well, no, actually. I sometimes like Democrats more than I like Republicans, because Democrats will stab you in the face, Republicans will stab you in the back. Mitch McConnell is guilty of the exact same thing. This is why Mitch McConnell is silent. All of D.C. is guilty of the exact same thing. The Republican establishment is as bad as the Democratic establishment. I will criticize Republicans probably with more veracity than I will Democrats, because I want to clean my own house up. Mitch McConnell has taken untold millions from the Chinese, done investments in China. Mitch McConnell deserves the same type of scrutiny. I truly believe that. You'll get honesty here. We chop wood on this show. Balls and strikes on this show. And so why exactly has Mitch McConnell not asked any questions about Joe Biden's dealings? Because it implicates him as well. Bob Menendez was caught with gold bars rattling around in his whitey-tighties. Bob Menendez was in charge of the Foreign Affairs Committee. Speaking of foreign affairs, Eric Swalwell slept with a Chinese spy. He's bang-banging, fang-banging. How despicable is our leadership in Washington? The English language lacks words to describe how traitorous these people are. They're sick. And if you are to pull the thread, and you are able to get Biden on this one, then the entire system falls to pieces, because the Clintons do the same thing, and the Obamas do the same thing. This is all happening because Barack Obama did this. The timeline for this is incredible. Joe Biden started making money and started to get the Chinese plum and the Ukraine plum when he decided not to run for president against Hillary Clinton. These were gifts that Barack Obama gave him. Did you know that? Line up the timeline. Click. Suddenly it starts making sense. As soon as Joe Biden did Obama's bidding, Obama said, here you go. You could go rape and pillage these areas of the world that will pay you graft and corruption money. And by the way, if you've ever looked through any of the photos on Hunter Biden's laptop, there was plenty of raping and pillaging going on. Sick, disgusting degenerates. And then they have the audacity to run as bringing decency back to the White House. There is a guard of establishment Washington. His name is Chris Wallace. This man, this man disgraced us by having a Fox News show for decades. He went on Fox News acting as a Republican or a conservative or someone who's concerned about, I don't know, his nation or his country. Chris Wallace has lived his entire life in Washington, D.C. He's a barnacle. He's a fossil. He's a parasitic individual. And it tells you everything what happened when Chris Wallace was confronted live on the debate stage about Biden's crimes, which he knew full well, which is a known secret in Washington, D.C. This is how the city works. Watch Chris Wallace's extreme antibody reaction to having the industry of Washington, the usage of the American taxpayer as cattle, as tax cattle, as a tax farm, to enrich the oligarchs, which Joe Biden represents and Chris Wallace protects. This exchange shows you everything. Shows you entirely how the system works. Go.
Deficit
China
with
ate
Mexico.
your lunch. Down 18%. China ate your lunch, Joe. And no wonder your son goes in and he takes out billions of dollars. Takes out billions of dollars to manage. He makes millions of dollars. And also, while we're at it, why is it, just out of curiosity, the mayor of Moscow's wife gave your son $3.5 million. What did he do to deserve it? What did he do with Burisma to deserve $183,000?
None of that is true.
Let him answer.
None of that is true.
Oh, really?
Totally,
Mr. President,
Mr.
President, please.
Totally discredited. Totally discredited. And by the way,
well, wait, he didn't get $3.5 million, Joe?
Mr. Vice,
he got $3.5 million.
That is not true.
Oh, really?
Mr. President, it's an open discussion, please.
It's a fact.
Well, you have raised an issue. Let the Vice President answer.
Discredited.
Did Burisma pay him $183,000 a month with no experience in energy?
Mr. President,
with no
my son did nothing wrong at Burisma.
I think he did.
Mr. President, let him answer.
He doesn't want to let me answer because he knows I have the truth. His position has been totally, thoroughly discredited.
By who?
And
the media?
By everybody. Well, by the media, by our allies, by the World Bank, by everyone has discredited. Matter of fact, even the people who testified.
Do you see how it works? See how it works? Mr. President, Donald Trump goes in both barrels. Donald Trump was right. Donald Trump was correct. He knew everything. Donald Trump had Joe by the balls. The old, dandruffy, saggy balls. Sorry, I had to do that. Ladies and gentlemen, Joe Biden was forced on a debate stage to answer for his family's corruption. And what happens? Chris Wallace. Oh, Mr. President. No. Let him answer. Instead of doing what a journalist would do, which is say, these sound like pretty high crimes, bribery, treason against your nation. Joe Biden, did you actually make money in China? Did you sell out our nation? Did you withhold $1 billion to get a prosecutor fired to help your son? Those are really harsh allegations. Did you do those things? Instead, it's shut up, Trump. This is why Tucker Carlson had this to say about his former colleague, now I think abandoned to a digital show at CNN that nobody watches, in total humiliation and inconsequence. But Tucker Carlson said Chris Wallace is a bitchy little man when speaking with Trump, because Trump went in on this moment during the debate stage. Watch.
I said, how come, and this was in front of probably not a friend of yours, Chris Wallace. He was the moderator.
Not a friend.
I said, why is it he wants to be Mike, but he doesn't have the talent? It's one of those
bitchy little man.
He wanted to be his father, but he didn't have the talent of his father was great. He's a
little fussy man.
His father interviewed me in 60 Minutes. It was actually a 10. Can you believe it?
No, I totally. His father had talent, at least.
I may have been the only guy that he gave a good 60 Minutes to. He was rough.
Really?
His father was tough. He was great, though. He was great at what he did. But Chris Wallace was so upset he was guarding this guy who wouldn't do a show, by the way. He wouldn't do. I figured I didn't mind Chris Wallace because Biden wouldn't do a show, and it was very obvious. He kept asking him and asking, but he wouldn't do the show. So I figured he's got to like me. But he came from a different planet. But remember when I asked the question, why is it that the mayor of Moscow's wife is allowed to give you $3.5 million? Don't forget, that was brought up. Now it's brought up all the time, but that was brought up by me long before anyone ever heard of it. I said, the mayor of Moscow's wife giving you $3.5 million. What did you do to deserve $3.5 million? To Biden. And Chris Wallace said, this has nothing to do with the debate. I mean, he
got in the way of the question.
Ooh, baby. I wonder why that's one of the most viewed interviews of all time. It's incredible to see what happens when Donald Trump is just allowed to talk, when people are simply allowed to have conversations about the world around us, like this message. This is a message directly from Hunter Biden saying, I'm sitting here with my dad. You better give us money. You better pay up. I am with my father. I am going to hold a grudge, and my father is going to weaponize politicians and politics against you in America if you don't pay us. This is the exact message. It is worth reading aloud. I'm sitting here with my father. I would like to understand why the commitment made has not been fulfilled, the $5 million. Tell the director that I would like to resolve now before it gets out of hand. I will make certain that between the man sitting next to me, Joe Biden, and every person that knows my ability to forever hold a grudge, that you will regret not following my direction. I am sitting here on the call with my father. Joe Biden was being used as leverage. You can see it not only in Hunter Biden's private texts, but you can hear Hunter Biden talk about it himself on his voicemail. Why don't they play you these voicemails? I don't know. Why are we the only show that seems to have a encyclopedic knowledge of the voicemails left on Hunter Biden, that Hunter Biden left? In his own voice, Hunter Biden says, my family is in business with the spy chief of China. Go.
I have another New York Times reporter calling about my representation of literally, Dr. Patrick Koh, the spy chief of China, who started the company that my partner, who was worth $323 billion, founded, and is now missing. And I am receiving calls from the Southern District of New York, from the U.S. Attorney himself. My best friend in business, Devin, has named me as a witness without telling me in a criminal case, and my father without telling me.
Ooh, dramatic. But it is dramatic. Why hasn't anyone ever played that for you? You never heard that before, have you? Hunter Biden with the drink cart rattling around behind him. My favorite part of the drink cart. Hunter Biden's rattling it and kicking it. Furious that they are starting to unravel the criminal network that is the Bidens, that I don't think was ever supposed to get out because the Bidens were never supposed to run for office again. Then Donald Trump happened. It was supposed to be 8 years of Hillary. Then Donald Trump happened. And then to go reach into the dinosaur bone fossils of Jurassic Park and pull out Joe Biden. They thought they could just go off into the sunset, hoover up that money, and no one would ever be the wiser. And now it's all collapsing down. What were the Chinese buying? That's worth asking. These kind of third world nations, they don't pay bribes for nothing. What was Kazakhstan buying? What was Ukraine buying? What was Russia buying? The wife of the mayor of Moscow, a Putin installation, paid $3.5 million to Hunter Biden. Elena Baturina is her name. Then she had dinner with Joe Biden right after that. Amazing. Then she's left off the sanctions list, shockingly. Man, your government is so fraudulent. What were they buying? Because they don't give this money just for fun. Russians ever given you $1 million? Has the Chinese ever given you $1 million? Kazakhstanis ever come over and say, wah, wah, wee, wah? You'll never get this. You'll never get this. La, 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 la. That's not what happens to normal people. Only to the Bidens. Because the Bidens can offer something in return. Here's what they offer in return.
In August 2019, just months after Joe Biden announced his candidacy, the Chinese sent $250,000 electronically to Joe Biden's Wilmington, Delaware address. Hunter Biden received the money in his checking account and his checking account listed his father's primary residence. And not only did Joe Biden shake the hand of the man who sent his family money, he had coffee with him and spoke to him on the phone. After VP Joe flew his son Hunter on Air Force Two to Beijing, and Hunter flew home on Air Force Two with a bag of money, Vice President Joe Biden wrote letters of recommendation for Jonathan Lee's children to Georgetown and Brown. And the minute Biden announces a presidential run, the same Chinese guy sends the Biden family $250,000 out of the blue to a checking account with Joe Biden's address on it. And once Joe Biden gets elected, he starts doing China favors. He disbands the FBI's China task force. He covers up the lab leak. He doesn't pop the balloon. Now we have the Chinese bribing the Biden family while Joe was vice president, after he was vice president, and while he was a presidential candidate.
So the convenience here for nations like China and Russia is that they can destroy Joe Biden. I mean, what a wonderful thing to have. You have a man who you can totally control inside of the White House. That's what's going on here. What do they have? This is everything they ever said about Donald Trump. This is Joe Biden. He is utterly a muppet of the communist Chinese. Every policy decision that Joe Biden ever makes is to suck the toes of Xi Jinping. Ew. Yikes. Little Mugu Gai Pan. It is despicable. He is controllable. Joe Biden lives in fear that this information will get out. Joe Biden lives in fear of what he said over recorded phone lines. They were sloppy. They were lazy. They were dumb in covering their tracks. We've been talking a lot on this show about tapes of Joe Biden making these bribes, about this pieces of evidence that are still floating out there that you don't know about yet. They got a full deck. Republicans are playing with a full deck. Something's about to drop. Something's going to break. More information is going to come out. And those in the know are saying that Joe Biden's political career will be over, and he'll be lucky to leave office a free man. Watch.
Now, what do you think the chances are the Chinese are still bribing the Biden family? We might find out tomorrow. Because sources tell Jesse Waters Primetime that additional evidence could be released as early as tomorrow that may show Biden family offshore accounts and IRS agents being obstructed from pursuing leads into Biden family members. The bribery statute's written so that bribing a politician's family is still bribery. U.S. Code Section 201B2 spells it out for all you lawyers out there.
There you go. There's the message. What else do you want from me? What more evidence do you need? Are they going to put Joe Biden in a courtroom and hand him a blood-soaked glove and have him put it on? What's next? Joining us in just one moment is going to be a former federal prosecutor, Kash Patel, absolute badass patriot, and he's going to explain for us what is about to happen to the Biden family. But first, if you don't want your messages like this getting out, if you want to be protected in your own cell phone coverage from not just your cell phone signal, but radiation, then you need to use Silent like I do. I'm on my phone all day, every single day. Maybe you are too. We encourage you to be on your phones because we like having you watch this show, obviously. But when you're going to bed, when you're wanting to have a private conversation, you need to go and use the product here in my hot little hand. This is where my phone sleeps at night. This is where I have a wireless charger. I put it in here, and then it stops the radiation. My Silent Faraday sleeve stops the cell phone signal from hitting my device, and it keeps me at peace. It keeps me knowing that these little recording devices are not anywhere to be found near me or near my beautiful little head as I'm sleeping. Go to Silent today, slnt.com/Benny, and save 15% on free shipping and qualified orders. Silent today, slnt.com/Benny. Make sure that you are not being listened to by all these little apps on your phone. Mr. Biden app, yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, somebody that I want to listen to, somebody that I need to listen to, somebody that we must listen to is the man who really has quite the plan for Donald Trump 2.0, really has quite the understanding of how our federal government works or does not work. A man who's been on the cutting edge of the freedom and transparency movement in Washington, D.C., and may just yet have his greatest moments. Ladies and gentlemen, joining me now, the great Kash Patel. Kash, congratulations on your book launch. Let me just start off. Government Gangsters. You've been previewing it quite a bit on the show. Bravo, man.
Thanks so much. It's finally here. It's alive. It hit the top 10 all books yesterday thanks to Donald Trump's announcement, and we're going to keep going.
Government Gangsters. It couldn't be a more perfect time for this story. What do you make of this? Did the Chinese wire you money when you announced for president?
Yeah, I've been getting money for like 10 years. What are you talking about? Everybody in Washington does. I mean, that's no surprise. I mean, this is disgusting. Just think of this. And you remember this because you covered it so well. Remember the Trump Tower meeting where Don Jr. met with Russians to talk about adopting Russian children, and Adam Schiff turned it into the crime of the century, where the master plan was hatched and Russian assets were deployed and Donald Trump was bought and paid for? How about the Cafe Milano dinner? I know you touched on it, but I just want to hammer this for your audience. Vice President Joe Biden and Hunter and his business associate and the mayor of Moscow's wife dine at Cafe Milano 2 weeks after the mayor of Moscow wired Hunter Biden's shell company $3 million. Why aren't there subpoenas for every single attendee of that meeting and that trail of money like they did to Donald Trump and his family for a harmless, quote unquote, Trump Tower meeting? I mean, this is a two-tier system of justice that we're talking about in Congress. I mean, they don't have the bandwidth to do much. So I don't know that they're going to do any of this, but we have to at least get the story out there. And remember, the Cafe Milano meeting, if you're listening to the fake news media, it never happened. What are you talking about? And after 8 years of combing through federal records, the Secret Service and everybody was like, oh yeah, he was there. But nothing to see here. This was 10 Chinese checks ago. We're way past that.
If you were to open up the pages of most corporate media websites, you'd see articles about Donald Trump and a judge issuing a summary judgment without a trial, without a jury, on Donald Trump's finances. You see nothing about Joe Biden's finances. Do you believe that the Matrix is breaking, Kash?
Yeah. The Matrix is completely broken. And I'm not a real estate guy. I don't pretend to be a business guy. But this jackal in a robe in New York valued Mar-a-Lago at $18 million. Joe Biden's Rehoboth Beach home is worth $4 million. Has anyone done the math on this? Are you kidding me? Does he have like 400 Corvettes piled with top secret information in there? Maybe we get there. I mean, this is just a simple mathematical equation. Anyone that has seen or been anywhere near Mar-a-Lago is like, I could get that for 18 mil. I'll go sell my soul to the Chinese right now and get 20 mil and go buy Mar-a-Lago if that's the price tag. But this is what they're doing to him. Kneecapping him civilly, going after his family. Obviously, the Trump indictment's criminally. The 14th Amendment. Who knows what they're coming up with next? But that's the thing. They're already on Russiagate 27.0, and they're going to deploy it, and we better be ready for it. And I just don't know that a lot of the Republican movement is.
Yeah, that's right. We do certainly need a changing of the guard, because it does seem as though this is treasonous. Article 2, Section 4, of course, is going to demonstrate and align for us what is an impeachable offense. Well, treason and bribery are the first two. Everyone likes to talk about high crimes and misdemeanors, but, because no one knew how to, figure out how to couch, a blowjob in the White House for Bill Clinton. So that, they had – but it's treason and bribery, which is what our founders wrote, as the top tier. And this seems to be both. From a federal prosecutor standpoint, can you walk me through how would you prove treason? How would you prove bribery here with the Bidens?
It's really simple. That's what we call it. We call these things paper cases. It's fraud. And it's not like you're looking for an eyewitness to see who pulled the trigger and sold the dope to that guy and then drove the getaway car to Mexico. You're looking for money. And it just doesn't lie. Either money was sent or it wasn't. And it's not like these guys were operating duffel bags worth of cash like the cartels down in Mexico. They were literally sending 7 figures from Russia and Ukraine and the CCP and China to bank accounts with Hunter Biden and his business associates' name on it. And then we saw Joe Biden's his net worth grow by 10x in 1 year after he left the vice presidency. I mean, I don't know if he's that smart or that good of a businessman, but that's what you call circumstantial evidence. And then you go subpoena him. and you say, where did you get this money? And you look at his bank records, and I bet you dollars to donuts, his pal, son, criminal, Hunter Biden, has been siphoning off funds to daddy for forever just because they knew they would never get caught. I mean, following the money is so easy. And this is what frustrates me. Comer's doing a great job following the money, but why aren't we seeing the receipts? Why are we being dripped out the documentation? The mainstream media is going to win this narrative, and they're going to bury it because we are sitting on a gold mine, and all we want to do is like weekly headlines, and they want to see themselves on Fox News. I'm sick and tired of that. You don't work for the mainstream media. You work for us. Give us the documents.
Yeah, this does seem like you have a bit of a bee in your bonnet, Kash. You are joining the show a little bit fiery today, going after the congressional Republicans. Give them a bit of advice here, please.
It's just simplify. You don't have to be a prosecutor, an intel guy, or a government guy to figure this stuff out. What proves criminal conduct? The receipts. When you don't have a videotape of the crime, you go to the receipts, and then you go to the witnesses. And they're starting this impeachment inquiry, I think, tomorrow, whenever they're starting it. I don't even know anymore. Yep. And I looked at the witnesses, and I'm like, who are these guys? Where's Hunter Biden?
Yes.
Where are the people in Burisma? Where are all the whistleblowers that came forward and said Mr. X, Y, and Z committed crimes of obstruction? Why haven't those DOJ officials been subpoenaed? I mean, it's almost as if they want the mainstream media to neuter this inquiry before it gets off the ground. And that's the thing. We don't have a full-on year's worth of attention span in the American public to let this thing carry for a year. I mean, they may want a news cycle where they get interviews every night, but that's the American public is going to be like, I'm over it. And that's why, selfish plug, read the book. It's in here. It's all in here. All the receipts are here. Go to governmentgangsters.com. Benny, it's dripping with so much ink from so much redactions. There's like 4 pounds of ink on my floor.
So many redactions because they wouldn't let you write the truth.
That's it.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
So it does seem as though there is a bit of a vibe change, though. Mm-hmm. Like the White House is in panic mode.
Yeah.
They're tweeting like frantically. This is there is a bit of an energy shift here. Donald Trump's up 10 points in the poll. People are looking into these rules about bribing politicians' kids, which is also bribery, right? Which is also illegal. Do you see like anything? Do you see anything happening on that front? Can you explain that, by the way, to me?
Yeah.
Because I'm ignorant on the fact.
No.
You can't bribe a politician's kid, right?
You can. That's a great point. So bribery, the target, don't have to receive the money to be guilty of bribery. If you enrich someone intentionally in your world, your kid, your friend, your business partner, as an intentional act of fraud, that's bribery. So all the fake news media saying, what evidence is there on Joe Biden? Putting aside all of the actual evidence, he got on phone calls, executed meetings with foreign business leaders, threatened to hold $1 billion in U.S. aid, all to benefit his son. It's fraud and bribery. That's it. That is the same as if he pocketed the money himself. That's what the U.S. the U.S. Supreme Court has said about bribery. And so this it's just another red herring disinformation narrative. Well, Joe didn't really get all of the money. It doesn't matter. It has no consequence. He acted intentionally to allow a fraud to occur that benefits his son.
So because Joe Biden didn't have bars of gold rattling around in his hands,
that we know of.
Are we run by the dumbest people, man? You've been to you. I don't think you're from New Jersey. Are you from New Jersey?
No, I'm a New Yorker.
Okay, but are we? I mean, Bob Menendez, like, he's still running, huh? Like, even after your old DOJ buddies, like, just pretty much put a nail in his coffin, dude's still running.
I mean, I don't think we're run by dumb people. I think we're run by evil people. And evil people are evil geniuses. I mean, you just have to realize Biden's been in power in public office for 55 years. He's never really had a real job. He's been lying since like 1981 when he plagiarized his first presidential speech. Yeah. And he's made a career out of it. And if that were a witness or target in a courtroom, you would have established a multi-decade long effort of lying, which would neuter any defense you would put forth on a fraud or bribery case. But it's Joe Biden, so he gets rewarded. Same with Menendez. It's not like these guys didn't know Menendez was flying around to the islands, had female acquaintances, had gold bars, had millions of dollars. It's not like he wasn't already charged before. And remember, he wasn't acquitted the last time. It was a hung jury. And for some reason, DOJ said, we're not going to try it again. As if I've ever seen that maneuver. So everybody in the Democratic side, and even some of the Republicans who are just sitting there saying quiet about Menendez, they've known about it. They empowered him. They let him be the chair of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Does anyone know how powerful that job is? It is built for a corrupt actor like Menendez to fleece the United States government so he can enrich himself. And in doing so, he destroys our relationships overseas. That guy is in charge of deciding what money goes where, what diplomats are pushed out, who's the Secretary of State. It is a huge gavel that, I mean, he now relinquished the gavel, but now we're talking about whether or not he's going to leave. And I don't think he's going to leave. But you know what? Good, stay. Maybe the gold bars will go back to Joe Biden.
Sounds like we have a government of gangsters, Kash. Where can people find your new book?
No, thanks so much. Governmentgangsters.com. You don't like Amazon? No problem. We're doing our own distribution at governmentgangsters.com, signed copies. Donald Trump did a huge release yesterday, called it the Blueprint and Roadmap for 2024. I name every government gangster in the back by name. There's a shorthand solution to government, 5 pages. I wrapped it all up in the back of the book, but I take you through our ride in Trump administration and beyond. And I talk to you about preventing the Gina Haspels, Mark Espers, Bill Barrs of the world from ever returning, and so many more. We got to win this thing, but we got to educate the American public so that we don't have another rigged election by government gangsters and the fake news.
Yeah, James Clapper. We led the show yesterday with James Clapper being like, "Oh, I'm a little worried that Donald Trump's going to put a lot of us in jail, starting with Mark Milley." Final thoughts on that? Yeah.
Yeah, that's the central tenet of government gangsters. We have to defeat this 2-tier system of justice. Clapper, Brennan, Milley, you name it. Every guy that I outline in government gangsters, yes, we should prosecute them. And this is why Congress needs to subpoena them. So we lock in their testimony under oath. And when Donald Trump wins on day one, we roll out with a dozen arrests of these corrupt government gangsters for lying to the world and rigging presidential elections.
Man, hot damn. Seems like something that could actually save the country, Kash. And we say Godspeed to you. Thank you, Kash Patel. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have a wild night tonight. We are going to have the Republican debate. That starts at 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. We are going to have Donald Trump's speech. That starts at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, so we'll be going live at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. You don't want to miss anything. And the way that you don't miss anything is to stay connected with us. That's why we encourage you to use Patriot Mobile. For 10 years, Patriot Mobile has been America's only Christian conservative wireless provider. When I say only, I mean only. We love working with them. They're our friends. They help us get signal where most others could not. In the desert or in disaster zones. We really swear by Patriot Mobile, and we encourage you to switch today to America's only wireless provider that supports free speech, religious freedom, sanctity of life, and the Second Amendment, and our military. Go to patriotmobile.com/Benny or call 878-PATRIOT to get free activation today with the offer code Benny, BENNY, patriotmobile.com/Benny. All right, guys, I do want to cover Joe Biden falling yesterday. Joe Biden did, in fact, trip down the stairs of Air Force One. There's a reason why this is so funny is because yesterday we covered a story before we saw Biden trip, literally moments before we saw Biden trip. We covered a story. We heard you a story from Axios about how the White House is on a don't let Biden trip mission and how they're changing his shoes. They're making him wear tennis shoes. They're giving him balancing acts to do. They're making him use the short stairs, like the short bus on Air Force One. He's not allowed to use the long stairs anymore. He has to use the teeny little short stairs. Go in with the baggage. Next thing they're going to do, they're just going to strap him to one of those moving wheelie dollies, and they're just going to roll him right up into the plane. I think that's how the Babylon Bee headline like that. And just strap him in, use the Velcro, and then you roll him up. Here's Joe Biden tripping down the stairs of Air Force One, the short stairs, yesterday. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to salt that lib. Let's get out our salt shakers. Please fill the comment section with salt shakers. We'll put it on screen as we play a supercut of Joe Biden. The reason why we're doing this is because we're so nice to Joe Biden. We don't engage in elder abuse like Jill does and the entire Democrat Party. We're not engaging in elder abuse. We're nice to Joe Biden. We're going to salt these stairs so that there's no ice on them and they don't get slippery, right? That's what we're going to do. Let's salt Joe Biden falling. Go.
Has allocated to invest in police departments and training of police officers. It appears as though the president did have a slight trip there as he's boarding.
I have too much fun putting the salt shakers on the screen. I'm like rolling through the salt shakers right now. Thank you so much for helping us salt that lib. Thank you, as Joe Biden trips and falls and humiliates us and degrades us all throughout. What is this? Is this salt? Is this salt and then a bowl of salt? Ooh, baby. That's really nice, Neil. Thank you so much, Neil. Yum, yum. Salt so good. Yes, yum, yum. Gang, gang. Ladies and gentlemen, we got ourselves one final story here that is incredibly evil. Dr. Fauci was smuggled into the CIA in order to influence the scientists that were put in charge of figuring out where COVID came from. Why is this important? This is very important. We have been covering this thread for a very long time. There are two things that we talk about on the show regularly: COVID origins, and we talk about Joe Biden's crimes. We are the only show that consistently puts our shoulder into these two stories, because these two stories collide in how your government coordinates in order to destroy your life. And that is precisely what COVID is. After September 11th, the Patriot Act, the most evil piece of legislation that ever was passed by our Congress, and shame on everyone who voted for it, shame on all of them. It eroded warrantless, it created warrantless surveillance states throughout our federal bureaucracy, and utterly immolated the Constitution, but it also put Dr. Fauci in charge of a bioweapons program. Dr. Fauci he created labs all around America in order to create bioweapons. And then Dr. Fauci's bioweapon labs, they leaked and people got sick. And so it was shut down inexplicably by a guy named Barack Obama. So Dr. Fauci was so evil that Barack Obama had to shut him down. At least that's the way that the facts play out. Anyhow, Dr. Fauci, of course, couldn't allow that to happen, so he offshored his bioweapons programs to all around the world, because that's really smart. Places like Ukraine, where there are biolabs. Places like China, where there are biolabs. And those biolabs are funded by our CIA, by our federal government, by our DOD, through Dr. Fauci. And he gives grants. And so when COVID gets released at a very specific and very special and very calculated time that has maximum damage and impact on Donald Trump's roaring economy, puts a icy cold sledgehammer into the face of Donald Trump's economy, well, it makes a lot of people scratch their heads. And what makes more people scratch their heads is now there are whistleblowers saying that the CIA paid their own scientists to not come to the conclusion that they made the virus. And now here's a story of Dr. Fauci getting escorted into the CIA in order to sit those little scientists down and tell them that their careers are over, effectively, by his medical cartel, if they dare say that this was created in a laboratory, which of course it was. The genetic makeup of COVID is obvious. They added human spike proteins to a organically occurring coronavirus that exists naturally inside of a horseshoe bat found in Southeast China up in high caves. So you can take the coronavirus out of the bat. It doesn't matter to the humans because there's no receptor cells that will allow it to infect your body. Dr. Fauci, through his funding, snipped into those cells spike proteins so that the bat coronavirus could infect your body. This doesn't happen naturally. It didn't happen with any human spooning a bat in China through soup or other means. Chinese getting kinky. Nope. Didn't happen that way. It didn't happen because Joe Biden brought Hunter Biden over there, and Hunter Biden was left in a hotel room full of bats with a GoPro strapped to his head. No, ladies and gentlemen. It happened because of Dr. Anthony Fauci and his goblin-like barbaric experiments to create super viruses. So now we know that Dr. Fauci was trotted into the CIA in order to influence science itself and to make sure that the American public didn't know about their evil plans. Watch.
New evidence has just surfaced tying Dr. Anthony Fauci to the CIA's cover-up of COVID-19. Last week, a whistleblower claimed the CIA was paying people off to bury the lab leak theory. And now this, from the House committee investigating the pandemic origins. Quote, Dr. Fauci was escorted into Central Intelligence Agency, CIA headquarters, without a record of entry and participated in the analysis to influence the agency's review. The committee is now ordering HHS to hand over documents detailing all of Fauci's movements during the pandemic in and out of CIA-controlled sites.
Okay, so there's your proof. There's your smoking gun evidence. So they scrubbed Dr. Fauci's entrance. You think you can enter into the CIA without having some record of it? Got it. Dr. Fauci was in charge and is currently, as far as I'm concerned, in charge of a bioweapons program created through the Patriot Act. And it got wildly out of hand, so bad that there were leaks here on continental U.S. soil from his laboratories. He was shut down, and so he went international with this, with the blessing of the CIA. These people are so evil. They are so evil. This is the same CIA that allowed the 9/11 hijackers to enter America. Is it malicious or is it incompetent? I'm not sure, but we sure as hell deserve to find out. Ladies and gentlemen, we will find out tonight who is the king of the Republican field in 2024. I have a feeling it's going to be Trump. Please join us. Here is our debate night live stream. It's going to be awesome. I like the crispy graphic that's used there on the live stream. It's going to be fun. It was a wild time last time, and we will be having a raucous time this time as well. We will be bringing you the Trump speech along with the Republican debate. We'll be sort of like blending them, but we'll certainly be bringing you also what is the most interesting and compelling, as we did last time, and watching along with you. So please join us tonight starting at 8 p.m. It does seem as though the world is filled with evil and horrible news, and so we always want to end our show with the good news. Our verse of the day from Galatians 6:8. For the one who sows to his own flesh will reap destruction from the flesh, but the one who sows from the Spirit will reap eternal life from the Spirit. All you need to do is look out into the world and see who is obsessed with enriching their own families, with destroying this country, with destroying the neighborhoods that your kids grow up in or their schools, with stealing the innocence and the childlike joy of our children. Not childlike, just literal joy of our children. Anybody who's a parent understands this, that is innate and given to our children by God. That's why God says protect these kids. If you harm these kids, a hair on their heads, get a big stone, wrap it around your neck, and throw yourself into the ocean. That's what awaits you. Not good. You're able to see plainly now what is good and what is evil. It doesn't hide anymore. It's not in stealth mode. So let's take this opportunity and speak the truth, be the salt, and be the light. Be upstanding. March on, Christian soldier. We shall have the victory. It's your boy Benny, commander of the Benny Brigade. Thanks for watching. See ya.